I'm Micah Smith, and this is AAillustrates. In this session, we're going to be covering part 2 of intelligent automation. So this is a continuation of our last session on intelligent automation, where we introduced what is intelligent automation. We looked at a couple example use cases, and we introduced this problem where we said, hey, we want to create this bot that's able to automatically sort the incoming emails that are coming for an IT help desk. And so we want to be able to classify them, and we want to be able to respond to the original sender to say, hey, your email for IT support has been forwarded to the appropriate hardware group or the appropriate software group or to the account access team. And we wanted to create a bot to be able to do that. I know that the last session was a bit of a cliffhanger because we introduced this tool and we said, hey, we can use this to build machine learning models, and it's super easy and it's all local. And then we just kind of had to end the video because we ran out of time. So I want to make sure that we're taking enough time in this session so that we can do the full bot build, we can introduce the tool, we can talk about how it works, and we'll give everyone the code, right? So you have the code, you can modify it, you can go from there. So first off, what is AAillustrates? So AAillustrates is an episodic series where we cover topics related to RPA, right? And specifically for developers on Automation Anywhere, we want to cover concepts like how to use some of the different products that work with Automation Anywhere, how to use the different tools, different topics that developers are interested in. This is very much a community-driven initiative. So, let us know the content that you like, let us know the content you want to see less of, and we'll be sure to create that for you. So reach out to us on our Twitter, on LinkedIn, and or comments on YouTube. We'll be sure to address those, and we'll make sure that we're creating the content that people are interested in seeing. So again, flipping back to what we talked about last time, we introduced this concept of like, what is intelligent automation? And we said, sometimes you'll hear the phrase used as intelligent automation, sometimes you'll hear it called cognitive automation. Really, those phrases are used interchangeably. And we said that, RPA is really that rule-driven, task-based automation where we're automating on top of GUIs and on top of APIs, and we have that flexibility to work between both. And we said that artificial intelligence is this really broad categorization where we're using data to drive or mimic human decision-making or cognitive decision-making. And we said that the sweet spot in between the two of those is where we find intelligent automation. And so we introduced that concept. We talked about a problem statement where we introduced, hey, we've got this help desk scenario. I send an email to the help desk. I say, hey, my monitor is not working. It won't power on. I've tried to plug it in, etc. I send them that email. Traditionally, a help desk would have someone who's just kind of monitoring that email inbox. They might reassign that to the appropriate sub-team, right? Maybe that goes to desktop hardware. So they might have someone who reassigns that to a particular sub-team or a particular set of individuals, and then that work eventually gets done. And we said, what if a bot was able to automatically interpret the emails that were coming in, automatically sort them to the appropriate group, and then automatically, you could take it from there, right? You could have it create a ticket in ServiceNow or do whatever. But we wanted to at least take care of how do we read the emails, how do we figure out what they're trying to get at, right? What group they belong to, respond back to that individual, and then that's where we'll break it. So we talked about some potential solutions. In the end of the last video, we had a call with myself and a friend of mine named Harish. We went through this tool that we created, and so in this session, I want to dive deep into how we can use that tool to solve the problem at hand. So we're very much bot build focused on this one. This is designed to be really hands-on. We've got links in the video description, which include how to get to the resources that I'll be using. So definitely build along with me. This bot and all the reference links are going to be up on our bot store, and so you'll be able to find those there. All right, so let's hop over to my screen here. So we said that one of the most important things for us to be able to build this machine learning model and be able to accurately predict, like, where does this email belong to and who should this be forwarded to, we need a lot of data. Now, I looked online and there's really not any great resources for like help desk tickets and their classifications. And so what I did is I reached out to my network and I said, hey, I need your help. I want to do a special community-based, bot build, and I need everyone's help to fill in some help desk tickets. So I put this up, and we actually got really good responses on this, more than I expected. So here we can see that, I created this spreadsheet and I opened it up for everyone to be able to participate. And I think we got about 266 or so. Yeah, 266, well, 265, I guess, because there's a header. But a lot of people participated, right? And the good thing about this is that I wrote the first like 5 or 10 maybe. And then from there on else, I really didn't write any, right? And so the nice thing about that is like these are kind of written in the Micah Smith language of like how I would phrase a help desk ticket. But the rest of these are written in other people's language. And the important thing there is that we don't want to just classify every time Micah sends in an email to the help desk. We want to be able to classify every time Micah does, but also Tammy and Sharon and Steve and all these other people, right? So we want to make sure that the language is, representative of the way that lots of different people write. And that's what this does. So I did some prep work on this spreadsheet. And again, I'm going to give you all these files so you'll have all of this, but I want to kind of walk through exactly what I did here to prep these. So I have I have our full emails, or our full sample emails, right? And this is just the Excel spreadsheet version of this. And what I did is I went through and I added sorting to this. And so I went through and I said, okay, of the, let's say, desktop software category, how many desktop software emails do we have? And in this we have 76, right? And I wanted to see the same thing for like, let's see, general questions. For general questions, we only have 40, right? So what I did is I said, okay, for our train versus test set, which is what we talked about last time, right? The train set is what we use to actually train our model, and the test set is what we use to validate our model, to know how good our model is. So I said, I'm going to take 15% of, each of the categories. So in this case, 15% of 40. I'm going to take 15% of that, and I'm going to save that over to a test set. And I'm going to leave the remainder as a train set. And I did that for each of the different target categories, right? So I couldn't just blanket and say, hey, I'm going to take 15% of the total. I'm going to clip these off and I'm going to make that our test set, because I wanted responses that were representative of each of our different categories. And I tried to, weight it evenly, right? So if there's 40 of these, I'm taking 15% of 40. If there's, for networking, let's see how many we have. Also 40, so not a great example there. Let's look at desktop software. For desktop software, there are 76, right? So I'm taking 15% of 76, and that's what I'm using for the test set. So I broke those up already. And what we have here, and again, you'll have links to these as well. My train set is right here, and it's a TSV, right? And that just stands for tab separated values. So we've got our target, which is our target categorization, our target categorization right here. And then we have our email. And so like desktop hardware, and then this is the email, and then general question, and this is the email. So that's our train set, and we have the same thing for a test set. Okay, so again, we don't have the same number of questions for desktop software as we have for general questions or networking, just because we had a larger sample for those. So I know I'm beating that point to death, but I just want to make sure that you understand that I didn't just clip off 15% in total. I had to take 15% of each type. So I had tested this earlier just to create a sample model. I'm going to delete that. What we're going to do is we're going to create that model live. So I'm going to go back to where I actually have the source files for this. And again, check out the links. You'll have this exact same solution file. You can modify it. You can see the code, whatever you want to do. So it's in the bin debug folder that we have the exe. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to open that up. Again, the thing that I really like about this, I'll be honest, what really geeks me out about it is that it's all local, right? So I don't have to worry about like how much am I paying AWS for hosting this particular cognitive service or something like that. This is all just local. It's fun to be able to play with. The model you build is local. Consuming the model is local. So it's, to me, that's like a fun solution to be able to play with. Anyway, we've got two tabs, like we said. We've got the get doc type, which is where we'd really consume the model. but on the build side, we can build the model. So we've got our build tab up. I'm going to move this over. Let's go right there. We'll put this on this side. Okay, so what I'm going to, I don't want that full screen. What I'm going to do is go back to where I had the help desk tickets. So I've got my test set and my train set. So let's browse out and grab those. So browse right here. So my train set. Nope, that's the ham spam that we looked at with Harish. There's my train set. Browse. This is my test set. For my model location, I'm just going to save it in this exact same location that we just had. By default, it's going to create a file called model.zip. That's fine. I'll leave it. Okay, so I'm going to hit build model. So it takes a few seconds and it will come back and tell me that it had a success. Notice that our model accuracy is only 61%. So we would really benefit by having a lot larger of a sample for these emails, especially because we have 5 different categorizations of email types. But even at 61%, I think we're going to find that it's good enough for what we're trying to do. Obviously, if I was trying to do this for like my company or if, my organization is going to depend on this, I'm going to try and get as large of a sample as I can. And I might even try to rebuild the model, month over month, just to make sure that like as I continue to get more and more samples, that I'm considering those as I do my model build. And especially as like, let's say help desk has to reassign one, I want to make sure that I'm capturing that reassignment so that it can be corrected in the model. So next time we build it, it's even more accurate. All right. So we've built our model. It exists right here. I'm going to copy, this is the same path, right? So there's the path and I'm just going to say /model.zip. And let's test it out some. So we'll test it with a couple sentences or a couple fake emails of each type, and let's see how it does. So let's say that I need to have some software installed. I need someone to install Adobe Acrobat on my laptop, right? That's a total common scenario for someone to send to the help desk. If I hit classify, the model says that it's 97% sure that is a desktop software request. I agree, right? So far we're good. We're 1 for 1. Let's try one for desktop hardware. My monitor is just showing a blue screen when I plug in my laptop, right? To me, that sounds like it's likely a desktop hardware situation. I'm going to hit classify here. And again, the model came back and said it's 98% sure that's a desktop hardware related problem. Cool, we're 2 for 2. Let's try one for account access. I think my account may be locked out. My password seems to be wrong. I need to reset it. I'm sure you love hearing me say these sentences slowly as I'm typing them. All right, so that's, to me that sounds like an account access kind of situation. If I hit classify, the model agrees, 98% sure that that is an account access related issue. So good. So far, so good. One that I think is probably the most difficult is general questions, right? And this is one that's like kind of the catch-all. I might say, I need someone to teach me how to use automation anywhere, right? That's another kind of general question you might get. Probably not to Automation Anywhere's degree, but I need to learn how to use a particular piece of software that recently got deployed. Again, the model here agrees with me and says 94% sure that's a general question. The last category we want to test is networking. I'm just going to say my laptop keeps disconnecting, connecting from the network. I also need to get my phone set up on the work Wi-Fi. If I hit classify, here it's 92% confident that that's a networking related issue. Again, I would agree. So, building our model, kind of testing it out there. Right now, it looks like it's good. It's something I want to keep an eye on, right? I want to see how accurate it is as we might send more emails or things like that. But the fun thing is that we, without a ton of work there and without really all that big of a data set, we built a model that's working pretty well. So the application's working fine. I'm going to minimize that for right now. Our goal for this, though, is to build an actual bot that can do this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to our control room, and I'm going to close these other tabs out because we really don't need those now. And I want to create a bot. So I'm going to go into bots, my bots, AAillustrates. I'm going to create a new folder, right? If you've been a part of my AAillustrates sessions before, you know that I'm real big on making sure that you do proper organization of your bots directory. Otherwise, you're going to look back at it and be like, oh, I have another file called test7. What does this one do, right? And you'll never be able to find your stuff. So try and name stuff accordingly. So I'm going to say we call this one Intelligent Automation Part 2, right? That was the name of our video session. So we're going to hit create folder. I am in here, so I'll hit create a bot. Again, as you're naming your bot, just make sure that it matches the folder that you expected, right? If that path was different, just pay close attention there. So I'm going to say email sorter. Okay. So as we think through our bot build, and I'm going to minimize this over here so we have full screen. As we think through our bot build, I'm going to build this one exactly how I think about building bots, right? And this is, when I'm starting a new build that I don't necessarily know how it's going to end up or how it's going to work, this is the path that I follow. So the first thing I always do is I try to map out, like, very generally, what are the basic steps that I need to follow. So I'm going to put those down here, right? The first thing we need to do is actually connect to our email. So for the purposes of this session, I've set up a Gmail account, and this Gmail account is, I think it's like AAillustrates@gmail.com or something like that. So we're going to use this for all of our emails, right? So I'm going to send an email to this account, and then I expect to respond from that account back to the original sender. So we're going to use this one. So the first thing we need to do is connect to the email and set up a session. So let's just say connect email session. That probably is the best way to actually write that. Okay. After that, we need to actually open up our machine learning application. Here it's called ML Classification. So let's say launch ML Classification. And we need to do more than just launch it, right? Because when it opens up, it doesn't have a model that's been selected by default. So I want to make sure that I launch the application and that I fill in the model location so that we know what to consume. And again, the cool thing about this is that if I have multiple models and I want to use those across different processes, I can do that easily. So we'll hit save on that. Okay. After that, we've connected to our email. We have launched the ML classification. Now we want to loop through unread messages. And that's how we're going to read the messages that the inbox has, right? So let's say we run this bot every 15 minutes, right? And every 15 minutes it'll check, and any new messages or any unread messages, it will read those, we'll do our classification, and then we'll respond. So I think that's good for our steps. If we need to add more later, we can do, well, let's add one more, right? One more step I think that we want to add is we want to close our ML classification app. And we do that because, again, in a real scenario, right, this is probably something that would run on an unattended bot runner. We don't want to leave applications open after our bot is finished because they may interfere with the next bot that's running, right? Maybe the next bot is also using this ML classification app. And now if there's two sessions open, we could have some issues when we start to fill in fields and things like that. So I would always, I always try to make sure that if I open something during my session, that I'm also closing it. All right, so let's do the email connection. So we're going to go up to the email package here. And there is one that says connect, and that will allow us to connect to an email server. So notice a session name. I establish a session name. I will reference that same session name when I do my looping, okay? So that's why it's important that I have that session. For my connection information, again, you wouldn't necessarily use the same account details that I'm using. If you're going to just use your local Outlook, that's totally fine. If you want to use a Gmail account, that's cool too, or whatever email server you're using. For me, I'm going to be using Gmail, so it's going to be an IMAP connection. So it's going to be imap.gmail.com. The port is going to be 993. For my credentials, I'm going to use some credentials that I previously stored in the credential vault. If you're not familiar with this, the credential vault allows you to securely store credentials and then retrieve them as needed securely, right? So I'm only retrieving them for the purposes of this particular action to be able to run. I'm not just like writing them out to a text file or something. All right, so Micah Locker, AAillustrates, Gmail, and then password. So that's the connection details for my Gmail account that I set up. And then I'm also going to check this box that says to use secure connection, and then we should be good. So I'll hit save on that. Now, that's all we need for that email step. The next thing we need to do is launch our classification. So for me, that path is, let's go back here, Machine Learning Classify, Machine Learning Classify, bin debug, and it's right here. I think I can do copy as path. No, I'm not seeing it there. I might have screwed up my, my control shortcut there. So I'm just going to copy the path right there to get me most of the way there. And I'm going to go up to Application, and then I'm going to say Open Program File. Okay. So with that, as a part of my process, I'm going to go over here to the Location Program File. I can fill this in if I have the full path. Obviously, I don't, so I'm going to hit Browse here. And that's going to launch an Explorer window for me. I can hit Open. So I had the path up until this point, and then MachineLearningClassify.exe is the actual executable. So now the path is complete, and I'll hit Save. Now, I'm going to hit Reset here. I'm also going to clear this out. So this is what the app looks like when it first launches, right? My cursor is by default in the text to classify, and my select model is not selected or anything like that. So I want it to look like that because when I start to interact with the application, I want to make sure that it looks like what it does when it originally would launch. So I'm going to go down here to my recorder. I'm going to drag a capture action right under here. And for my window, I'm going to hit the refresh windows button, right? And this is going to just get the title of every single window that's open on my machine. And from here, I will find the ML classification, and then I'll hit capture object. So again, if you're kind of new to this, you just hit capture object. I just clicked, and then you let go. And then when you focus on whatever app it is, it'll start to highlight stuff in red as you move your cursor around, right? So for me, I'm just going to click right here, which is the select model text box. You know, I could go through and do like the browse and find it that way, but I like to just do it this way. Now, I noticed when testing this before that if I just did set text, it doesn't actually work. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to left click, and then I'll do a simulate keystrokes. So it's really kind of like a two-step thing. And that's the exact same thing that happens when myself as a human tries to interact with this as well, right? If I wanted to fill in the select model field, I have to click, and then I would type. So we're just replicating that same thing. For any reason, you know, this particular application didn't work when I just hit set text. That's fine. I'll just do it this way. So I'm going to hit save there. So now we've assumed that it's clicked, and our cursor should be right here in the select model field. So now we will go to the simulate keystrokes package, and we will drag over the simulate keystrokes action. For the window, we can select from the recently used ML classification. And then for the text, this is where we want to enter the full path to our model. So for me, that is in helpdesk tickets and then model.zip. So I'm going to copy this path right here. And then I'll just type in model.zip at the end there. Cool. So that should get us the model selected inside of our select model text field. So we should be good on that. Minimize this one. So our next step is now to loop through our unread messages. It was important that we did the ML classification launch before we start looping because I only need the app to open one time and I only need the model selection one time. But you know, the looping through emails, I might have to fill in the text multiple times or things like that. So I want to do that outside of our loop. Let's add a loop now. And the loop we'll drag over right here. For our iterator, because we have an email session that's been established, I can select for each mail and mailbox. Now, when I do each mail and mailbox, I can choose whether it's all the messages, only the read messages, or only the unread messages. For right now, I'm going to leave it on all, and I'll show you why in just a second. So for this, I say what inbox it is. For me, I only have this one inbox, so that's fine. I'm going to leave everything else default. I am going to select that I want the message in plain text, though. I don't want the HTML formatted message. I just want the plain text one. Now, as it reads each of these emails, it's going to save the results of that email in a dictionary. But I have to specify that, right? So I'm going to hit this plus sign here to add a new variable. And I'm going to call this D. So I'm prefacing it with a lowercase d so that I know that it's a dictionary when I see this value later. And I'm going to say current email, right? Because I'm going to be looping through this multiple times. So this is going to be the dictionary representation of the current email that I'm on. Now, I don't know all of the return dictionary values or the keys off the top of my head. I'm sure that the documentation has that someplace if I go to like docs.automationanywhere.com. Short of that, I'm just going to do a quick test to be able to find those values. And so one package that I really like using for that is this Java FX package. I believe it's already installed in Community Edition. If you don't have it in your Enterprise Edition, you can go grab this. It's at botstore.automationanywhere.com. But Show Dictionary is a really helpful, let me drag that again one time, hold on. Show Dictionary. Show Dictionary is a really helpful, just like dummy action here so that I can see everything that's in that dictionary. So I'm just going to set like a button label that says close. For width, I'll do 500. For height, I'll also do 500, and I'll hit save. I'm going to run this. Now, again, this is how I do my builds in real life, right? Whenever I'm building for a customer or preparing for these kind of builds, if I don't know exactly what values are going to come back to me and in what context, I'll very frequently just do something like this to, kind of show me what I have right now, what's available. So it's going to connect to my email. It's going to launch that application. We'll have it launched a second time, actually, because I had one open already, but that's okay. It clicked. It put in the full path to that model. And here is our first email. Now, if we flip back to my Gmail session here, I actually only have one email in the inbox. So it's like the welcome email when you sign up for Gmail. So that's what we're seeing here in this window. And I can see that like these are all the values, so I can see who it's sent from, what the subject is, what time I received it, all this kind of stuff. The value that I'm most concerned with here, though, is this key for email message, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a note of that in my notepad here, just so I have a reference to it. And the actual value is email message. I'm going to just move this over here for right now. Because when we actually have to fill in this value to our machine learning classification app, I need to make sure that I can reference that here so that we can appropriately classify the email. So I'm going to hit close. We're good. I'm going to close. I'll leave this open for a second, actually. I want to have one of these open because I'm going to need to do some more recording stuff with it. All right, so back to our bot. I'm going to delete this action now because I really don't need it anymore. If I needed more values or more properties for my email, I could do that. And again, if you're really going to build this kind of solution for your organization, when we trained the model, we really only had one feature, and that feature was the body of the email. If I wanted to build a model in a different way, I could add multiple features. And another feature might be who the email came from. Another feature might be the subject of the email, right? Those could all be used to help me build my machine learning model. So just keep that in mind. That is a possibility. For our example, we just did it with just the email body, but you could expand on that later. All right, so I'm going to delete this. So we're inside of our loop. I'm going to change this now to only show unread. Okay, so remember that point. I'm only showing unread now because I got the dummy email that I wanted. And inside of our loop, what we need to do is we're going to read out our, let's do an assign here. I'm going to grab the value from my dictionary and I'm going to assign that to a string. So what I'm going to do is hit F2. D current email is my dictionary of strings, and my dictionary key is email message. And I'll hit yes insert. And I'm going to save this into a variable that I'm going to call s email body. Okay, so I have that. Now I want to put that email body inside of the text to classify here. So what I need to do is, just like we did before, I'm going to use the recorder here. And I'm going to select window and ML classification and hit capture object. I'm going to click into this text to classify field because, again, I don't know what iteration of the loop I'm on, but the last thing I could have done on that application was entering the model location. So I need to do a click up here, left click, and then just like we did before, I'm going to do a simulate keystrokes. And with that simulate keystrokes, for my window, I'm going to select ML classification. And then here for my keystrokes, I'm going to hit F2 and I'm going to enter S email body and hit insert. Okay, I'm also going to do one other thing now that I think about it. I want to pop up with the email body just so that we can see what it looks like as we go through this for the first time. So I'm going to go to message box. I'm going to, let's see, pop that up right here. This will be S email body. We're going to leave it like that. All right, so that should be good. So we've put the email body into the form. Now I need to click the classify button. So what I'm going to do is go back to recorder, drag a capture here, select my ML classification again and hit capture object. I'm going to highlight over the classify button. Again, notice that it's got that little red box. I'll hit the button to click classify. And then for my action, I'm going to select left click and hit save. All right, so we've clicked classify. Now we'll need to grab the value from the document type and the confidence score. I don't know what property those are going to be off the top of my head. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fill in the path to the model that we just had, right? Model.zip. Oh, this should be slash model.zip. There we go. And I'm just going to type in some text, right? I'm going to say my laptop screen has a big crack on it and I can't see anything on the display. If I hit classify, it told me that it's 90% sure that's a desktop hardware problem. That's fine. What I'm going to do is I want to use the desktop hardware to look for here in a second. So what I'm going to do is add another capture and go back to ML classification and hit capture object. When I highlight over this document type, okay, again it turned red. What I want to look for here in the object properties is to see where it has the word desktop hardware, because that's going to tell me, you know, kind of in a backwards way, what the value is or the key for that value. So it's actually in the word value. So what I'm going to say is get property, and here it's going to say, well, what property are you trying to fetch? I'm going to type in the word value, and then I'm going to assign that to S current email classification. Create select. Okay, so that's going to store the classification of our email. I also want to capture the confidence score. So if I go to window, ML classification, capture object, I'm going to highlight over this confidence and scroll down a little bit. Again, value is where that's being stored. Now, notice here we have the two like kind of grayed out quote marks. That tells us that this value is a string. So just keep that in mind when we return it and when we try and do some kind of manipulations with it. So I'm going to say get property, I'll say value again. And then here, I'm going to assign the output to a new value. And I'm going to say S current email classification confidence. Super long variable there. And hit save. Now, I only want the bot to respond to the email if the confidence is above a certain threshold. And for this example, we'll do 50%. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, let's go to the if, and let's drag that over. So my condition, I want to say if number. Let's see, where is that? If number condition. So notice here, and again, kind of similar to that same clue we just talked about, this has a pound sign here, which is representative of this requiring a number data type. If I go to type in my variable, which we just had, right, S current email classification confidence, and I try and move off of that field, right, it's going to give me an error here, right? And the error is because I just put a string into a field that's requiring a number. So one way that I can work around that is if I actually do, let's see, dot string. Notice that the IntelliSense comes up with a bunch of kind of like inline actions that I can do. One of them is to number. So this allows me to convert from string to number all in one line. So I don't have to have this extra command and an extra variable just to store that number temporarily. I can do it all in one command. Now, one caveat to that is that it's not, when it does that conversion, it's not going to store the decimal places, right, with an inline conversion. So just keep that in mind. If the decimals really matter to you, for us, we're just going to say if something is greater than 49, which would be 50 and above, then we're fine. So this one is not like a super scientific one, but if I needed to be concerned with the number of variables that are being maintained, or the number of, decimal points that are being maintained, I might need to do this a different way. All right. I might have actually just said that wrong. I think it actually only does that when you go from number to string, not the other way around. So ignore the advice that I just gave. All right, so what we're going to do here is for our if condition, this is where we actually want to respond to that email. So I'm going to go back up to our email messages, and I'm going to go to reply. Let's drag that one more time. There we go. So I don't need an attachment. I don't need to CC anyone. Again, because this is working with the email that's currently already, kind of in our context or that we selected, I don't need to worry about who it came from because the reply is going to handle all of that. For my email, I'm going to leave it as plain text. For my message, let's put a friendly message here. We're going to say, thanks for reaching out to the IT help desk. Your message has been forwarded to the, and this is where we will enter the classification type. So I'm going to hit F2 here to bring up our variables explorer. And I'm going to put the current email classification value there. So that will say something like desktop hardware, and then I'll put in the word team afterwards, right? So your email has been forwarded to the desktop hardware team. You should expect for someone to get in touch with you within 24 hours. I'm going to uncheck this go green message just because we don't really need it. And then for my send email, I need to fill in some details here to connect to Gmail again. So this time, because we're sending a message, it's going to be an SMTP connection. So I'm going to put in smtp.gmail.com. This time the port is 587. I'll leave the checkbox for SSL. I do have to fill in my credentials again. So I'm going to hit pick from my pick list to go to my locker and grab my username for Gmail, as well as my password for Gmail. All right, so that will authenticate and send the message that we had selected. Actually, let's put a from here, right? Let's do yours truly Is that how you spell truly? I think it is. Yours truly, IT helpdesk bot. We'll hit save. All right. So we sent the email, and then the last thing we want to do, so two things we want to do, right? Because we already have a classification that's occurred here, I need to hit the reset button on the application, because if I'm in a loop, I don't want to accidentally grab the document type or confidence from an old classification. So we want to click the reset button. So let's go back here and we'll do capture. Again, this is going to be outside of my if condition there, because the if is really only on sending an email. And I could add an else that like forwards it to a human to review the ticket or something like that. But for the purposes of this exercise, we'll just have the single if. I'm going to click reset. That's going to reset the results there. And if I'm in a loop, that allows me to take on the next email or do that classification. Hit save there. And then the last thing we're going to do is close the ML Classification app. And again, this would be outside of our loop. So this is once our entire bot run is complete. And I'm going to, in the window package, there is a close action. So right there, we will select ML Classification and hit save. Okay, so moment of truth, test time. So I've opened up an email. My email has a signature that goes on by default. I'm going to take that off just for the purposes of our test here, because I don't want to have lots of different variables that could impact our test. And let's go for a networking one, right? My Wi-Fi is really slow and keeps disconnecting. We'll just leave it like that. Need some help accessing the network. I think that's a good one. So I'm going to send that to the AAillustrates bot at gmail.com. For the subject, again, we're not pulling the subject or doing anything with it, so I can fill one in, but the bot's not going to ever see it. Let's just say help desk test. We'll hit send. So I'm going to make sure, why do we have a yield sign here? Oh, we forgot to select our action of click. Sorry. Good thing we noticed that. All right. I want to check to make sure that the email is actually received on the Gmail side. There it is. So help desk test. I'm going to leave it as unread because I want the bot to actually read it. So let's hit run here. Moment of truth. Shoot, I forgot to close. I'll close it real quick. Nothing happened yet, so we didn't screw up the bot. It hadn't even connected to the email yet. All right, so now we'd open the app. It's going to fill in the model, hopefully. There we go. Now it should be reading my email. Okay, so notice that we got the email, but we've got a bunch of extra carriage returns here, right? I can see that because usually this text would be a couple lines up. I'm going to copy that just so that we can test with this afterwards. But for right now, we'll just hit close. So see, we've got a bunch of extra returns there. For our classification, it didn't seem to matter, right? We still have a really high classification. But my view is that the text that we had when we trained our model was all cleaned up, right? We didn't have carriage returns and line breaks and stuff like that in there. And so because we've already cleaned up the text that we had to train our model, we should also be cleaning up the text that we use to consume our model. And we should follow that exact same cleaning. And so that's going to matter when you do this for yourself, maybe some other use case or something else that you try to play with. Make sure that when you're cleaning up your text to train the model, that you remember exactly what you did so you can do that same thing when you actually consume the model. So what we'll do here, and we just got an email response, so we'll check that here in a second. What I'm going to do here real quick is we're saving this into our email body. So I'm going to add 2 quick commands to help clean that up. I'm going to do the string replace action. And for my source string, that's going to be s email body. For my find string, I'm going to do the /n, which is going to find new line, and that's a regular expression. So I'm going to click that. And then replace with, I'm going to leave that as blank because I want to replace it with nothing. And then I'm going to assign that back to s email body. And I'm going to do that exact same thing one more time. So my source string again is going to be s email body. My find string is going to be r, which is going to be my regular expression for a carriage return. So I'm going to put regular expression there. Again, replace with will be blank and s email body. I'll hit save. Let's bring up our email real quick. So this is the response from the bot. And the bot said, thanks for reaching out to the IT help desk. Your message has been forwarded to the networking team. You should expect someone to get in touch with you within 24 hours. Perfect, that's what we expected. Let's send one more email to the bot and we'll test just to make sure that that text cleanup part worked, but I think we got a success here. Let's do a desktop software. I'm having trouble with my installation of Microsoft Office. Need someone to install it again for me. All right, so let's send that. Let's go back to check our Gmail here. And again, also notice that the bot ignored this welcome to Gmail email that I got because it was already read. So again, it's only considering the new emails. All right, so we got the email to show up there, help desk test 2. Let's run this. Again, the only difference this time really should just be that it cleans up the extra lines that we had above the email body. I don't know why those are there, but at least we cleaned it up. So connect to our email, fill out the model. Oh, I forgot my signature. That's probably going to screw it up. Let's see what happens. Huge signature there. Okay, so it still thought it was desktop software, but the confidence was much lower than I think that message would have been otherwise. So again, that's just something to keep in mind. If email signatures are going to be something to consider, I might want to look for certain HTML tags or for certain ways to clean that message up or clean that signature off before I actually start to do my classification, because I don't want someone's signature to throw this off. So again, we just got the email back. Thanks for reaching out to the help desk. Your message has been forwarded to the desktop software team. You should expect someone to get in touch within 24 hours. Perfect, that worked. All right, so let's go back to the PowerPoint. We'll finish up real quick. So just as a recap, there's more than one way to solve all of these problems. This is just one way to do it. You know, if you wanted to create a machine learning model and call that within Python and you were comfortable doing all of that, more power to you. The example here was just to create something that was friendly enough that anyone could do it, right? So if you're a citizen developer or if you're an IT developer but you don't have experience with machine learning, cool. You can try and use this app just to play around with, just to see how it works and solve kind of an interesting classification problem. How could this be taken further? Well, there's lots of different classification type problems that you probably have within your organization. That might be tasks in a workflow, right? We've got all these different workflow tasks and they need to be assigned to the correct groups or to the correct organizational units, and we need to figure out what they are or what they belong to because they kind of just get thrown in this one bucket. That would be a good use case for this. Emails from customers, right? Maybe we have this one inbox that's just like a gigantic inbox and like everything goes to this one inbox and it's not really well monitored. But if we do get customer complaints, we need to make sure that we're looking out for those. So maybe we do this just to like, hey, every once in a while, just scan for customer complaints and make sure we address those. It could be social media, right? maybe there are posts that have a reference to my company or me as an individual on social media. And I want to make sure that if they're really negative, I've addressed them, or being able to sort through those really toxic posts versus the really positive ones. So that's another use case. Or even checking like Google or Yelp reviews about your business or your company or something like that, checking to find out when really negative ones have been posted or really positive ones, and so that you can reply accordingly. You can have a bot do that kind of stuff. Okay, so lots of interesting classification problems. I would encourage you to play around with this, get hands-on, take a look at the code, it's all there, and really explore what can be done with this. So this has been AAillustrates. Again, your feedback helps to make these sessions more effective. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you want to see more of. You can reach out to us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or on our YouTube page. All of those are great ways to get a hold of the appropriate decision makers. I usually help try to respond to some comments as well. So if you want to get a hold of me there, you can do that. But again, thanks for hanging out. I know this was kind of a long session, but hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully you can start to turn some wheels and think of how you can explore this a little bit more. Okay? This has been AAillustrates. My name is Micah Smith. Go be great.